You know that feeling when you check your phone at 11 p.m. and suddenly you're doing math about your entire life? Like, wait, if I'm 27 and she already has a house and I'm still splitting rent with two roommates I met on Facebook, what does that mean about me? Yeah, that feeling. That's what we're talking about today. Here's something that's going to mess with your head a little. Researchers found that the average person compares themselves to someone else roughly every hour they're awake.
Not once a day, not a few times a week, every single hour. Think about that for a second. If you're up for 16 hours, that's 16 separate moments where your brain quietly runs a little report card on your life against someone else's highlight reel. 16 times a day, you're being handed a test you never signed up for, graded on a curve you can't see, by a teacher who doesn't even know your name. That's not a flaw in your personality. That's just what being a modern human with a smartphone does to your nervous system.
So let's actually get into why this happens, because once you understand the mechanics, it stops feeling like some personal failure and starts feeling like, oh, this is just how the machine works. Your brain did not evolve for the world you're living in. For most of human history, you compared yourself to maybe 150 people, your village, your tribe, the people you actually saw, ate with, worked next to. That's it. That's the whole comparison pool. And in that world, comparison actually worked.
If your neighbor had a better harvest, you could literally walk over and ask what they did differently. The information was useful. The comparison had a purpose. Now, flip to today. Your comparison pool isn't 150 people. It's basically infinite. You open Instagram, and in the first 4 minutes, you've compared your Tuesday morning to a guy's vacation in Bali, a woman's brand new kitchen renovation, your old classmate's engagement photos, and some 23-year-old six-figure business he definitely didn't build in the way he's implying.
Your brain, which was built for village-sized comparison, is now trying to process comparison at a scale it was never designed to handle. It's like trying to run today's video games on a computer from 1998. Something's going to crash, and usually what crashes is your self-esteem. And here's the part that really gets me. You're not even comparing your real life to their real life. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel. You know the mess in your kitchen, the argument you had with your mom this morning, the anxiety spiral at 2 a.m., the credit card bill you're avoiding.
You know all of that about yourself, but you don't know any of that about the person you're scrolling past. You're seeing their edited trailer and judging it against your full, unedited footage. Of course you feel behind. You're not even playing a fair game. Now, let's talk about why behind feels so specifically painful. Because it's not just regular sadness. Feeling behind hits different than other kinds of disappointment. If you fail a test, that's a moment. It stings, then it passes. But feeling behind in life isn't a moment. It's a timeline. It's the sense that you're not just having a bad week. You're on the wrong track entirely. And the gap between you and where you're supposed to be keeps growing every single day you don't fix it. That's what makes it so heavy. It's not pain, it's dread with a countdown attached. A lot of this comes down to something psychologists call the social clock. Basically, every culture has this invisible timeline in people's heads. By this age, you should have a career. By this age, you should be married. By this age, you should own something, have kids, have savings, have your life figured out, whatever that even means. Nobody hands you this schedule on paper, but somehow everyone knows it. And when your actual life doesn't match that invisible clock, your brain doesn't just note the difference calmly. It treats it like a threat, like an alarm going off. Because for most of human history, being out of sync with your group wasn't just embarrassing, it was dangerous. Falling behind the tribe could get you left behind, literally. So your nervous system still reacts to "I'm behind" with the same kind of urgency it would use for "I'm in danger." That's why this feeling doesn't just make you sad, it makes you panicked.
But here's where it gets almost funny if you step back far enough. The social clock everyone's measuring themselves against isn't even real anymore. It's outdated. It was built for a world where people got married at 22, worked one job for 40 years, and bought a house on a single income before they turned 30. That world barely exists now. But the emotional alarm system tied to that old clock never got the update. So you're being emotionally punished by a timeline that doesn't even match the century you're living in.
You're being graded by a rubric nobody actually follows anymore, and somehow you're the one who feels like you failed. Let's talk about social media specifically for a second, because it didn't create this feeling, but it absolutely poured gasoline on it. Before social media, you compared yourself to maybe a few dozen people you actually knew. Now, you're comparing yourself to a curated, filtered, algorithm-boosted version of literally anyone on Earth. And here's the sneaky part. The algorithm isn't showing you average people living average lives. It's showing you the outliers, the person who got rich fast, the couple with the perfect relationship, the 24-year-old who retired. These aren't representative samples of normal life. They're statistical extremes, and your brain doesn't know that. Your brain just sees person doing better than me over and over and over, and it quietly builds a warped sense of what normal even is. It's like judging your own cooking by only eating at 5-star restaurants every single day. Of course your homemade dinner starts to feel like a failure. You're comparing an entire meal to a highlight. Now, here's something that might actually shift how you feel about all this. Feeling behind is almost never really about the thing you think it's about. It's rarely actually about the house or the salary or the relationship status. Those are just the measuring sticks your brain grabbed because they're easy to compare. What it's actually about, underneath all that, is a fear of being unseen. A fear that if you're not hitting the markers everyone else can see, maybe your effort doesn't count. Maybe your growth doesn't count if nobody's clapping for it. That's the real wound. Not the timeline. The fear that your quiet, invisible progress somehow doesn't matter because it's not shaped like anyone else's. But think about how many things in your life right now don't show up on a highlight reel and still completely shaped who you are. The friend you kept showing up for during their hardest year. The habit you slowly built that nobody noticed except you. The version of you 5 years ago who wouldn't have survived what current you handles without even thinking twice. None of that fits into a caption. None of that would perform well in a 15-second video. But it's real. It's more real than almost anything people post. There's also this idea in psychology called the reference point. Basically, how good or bad you feel about your life depends entirely on what you're measuring it against. Change the reference point and the exact same life can feel completely different. If your reference point is a random stranger online who inherited money or got lucky early, your very solid, very normal life will feel like a disappointment. But if your reference point is you 6 months ago, or you at your lowest point, that same exact life suddenly looks like proof you're doing something right. Nothing about your actual circumstances changed, only the comparison changed. And that's honestly the most useful thing you can take from all this. You have more control over your reference point than you think you do. You've just been letting an algorithm pick it for you. And look, I'm not going to pretend the pressure isn't real, because it is. Rent is expensive. Milestones feel delayed. Things genuinely are harder for a lot of people right now than they were a generation ago. And that's not something to brush off with a positivity quote. But the feeling of being behind and the fact of being behind are two very different things. And most of the time, only one of them is actually true. So here's the reframe, and then I'll let you go. You're not behind. You're just comparing your entire life story to other people's trailers, and no story ever looks finished in the middle. If today's video gave you a little clarity, you can buy me a coffee through the link in the description. It genuinely helps keep this channel going.